RE2, we are back talking some FF7 Remake Part 3 yet again. Some more random interviews with Hamaguchi. I meant to mention this with last night's video that there might be some other interviews out there. We just happened to talk about those ones last night, right? And we were really just talking about the Automaton interview, and I just happened to come across the inverse one as I was making the video, so we kind of covered that one too. But there's at least like 4 other interviews with Hamaguchi that came out over the course of last night with like RPG site, JP Games, Windows Central, and I think maybe Screen Rant. As soon as I got done making last night's video and uploading it and then went on Twitter to tweet it out, there was like all kinds of info being posted by like Audrey and Genki and Shinark, the usual stuff. I was like, God damn it, of course. I think maybe the most interesting bit of info that I had seen was from one of the articles posted by JP Games, where Hamaguchi had mentioned that they already have a title for the third game, which isn't necessarily a surprise, but it's good to hear. But also what the key word for the third game is, which obviously they're not going to tell us that yet, but how it might affect gameplay, because they did have keywords for both Remake and Rebirth, of course. But also the teasing like information in the not too distant future. So we're going to start with the interview first. As you can imagine, we have many questions that we know you cannot answer, so we'll remain totally abstract. While Remake and Rebirth are direct sequels, they play very differently. Remake is more linear and story focused, while Rebirth focuses on themes such as journey and getting to know each other, which also shows up in terms of gameplay. With the third installment, which will also be released across multiple platforms, can fans expect a new theme that might even be reflected in the gameplay? Yeah, so you picked up on it really well there, how the series has evolved, essentially, and you pretty much picked up on the exact words, but the keyword we have, which underpins the design philosophy and then the themes for each game, and certainly Remake, the keyword that we used as a basis for that was reunion. So obviously the idea is within the game, Cloud has come back together with his comrades after a long time separated, and that's where the story begins. For the player as well, for most people, it will be their reunion with Final Fantasy VII that they played a long time ago, so that really underpinned everything about how the game was developed. The article is in German, but like the bottom half of the article is like the original English transcript or something, but I don't know if there's like weird translation stuff going on, because some of the wording's weird sometimes. For one, it mentions, or they quote Hamaguchi as saying that like Cloud was separated from his friends for several years, or his comrades is the word they use. But prior to the events of like FF7, Cloud didn't know any of the people. He wasn't separated from his friends. It was only Tifa that he was separated from for however many years, right? It wasn't like with the start of FF7 that Cloud was coming back to see Barrett again and Aerith and Red 13 or whatever. Like, he didn't know any of those fucking people prior to the events of FF7. Or Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, whatever, right? Unless Hamaguchi is confirming sequel theory here. Maybe that's what it is. Oh my god, maybe it's true. Then moving on to Rebirth, the main keyword that we used there was bond. So obviously that's the relationship between the characters, how they come to know each other and become closer over their journey. And that affected the gameplay, like you say. And in the same vein, we have got a new keyword for the third game in the series. Can't tell you what it is yet. It's very much there, though, and influencing and informing how the gameplay and the game experience is shaped in exactly the same way the first 2 games were by their keyword. So I'll say I don't really know how the keyword for Remake being reunion affected the gameplay at all when it comes to the first game, because that doesn't really make any sense. Like, you do have like dialogue choices and things here and there, right? And that might affect like aspects of the game a bit, but I guess maybe that's what they mean, I'm not sure. But when it comes to like the keyword for Rebirth being bonds, it obviously did affect the gameplay with the affinity system, where like doing side quests and dialogue choices and doing like particular synergy attacks with characters can build your bonds with them, right? That eventually lead to the date. So as for what the keyword for the third game is going to be and how that'll affect gameplay, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't know in terms of like combat. I don't know how you evolve past the synergy system, other than of course doing like trio attacks and maybe like a limit break synergy attacks or something like that. But that's really just kind of building off of what's already there, right? So I don't know. I'm also not sure if they're going to just like completely abandon the affinity system. Obviously, the Gold Saucer date was a big reason for the affection system when it came to the original game. That's why it was also in Rebirth, right? But when it came to the original FF7, there was still a reason for the affection system beyond just simply the Gold Saucer date, right? The affection system still came into play with the Under the Highwind segment with Tifa, where depending on your level of affection with her, it would change the scene, right? So I'm not sure if that's something they'll do with the next game, if they're going to keep some sort of affection system. It'd be a little bit strange, because really the only thing I can think of is this scene from the original game, right? So like, would you only have affinity that you can build with just Tifa? That'd be a little bit strange. I know there'll be a lot of people that would love that, but it would be strange to only have one character to build a bond with. But maybe that could be the point too. Like, this is a great moment for the characters. Also the live stream sequence. So like, maybe they do that. I don't know. Or maybe they just pick one of these scenes and make it the default of the Highwind scene. Like, there's no choices or affinity or anything like that in the next game. I don't know. Like, we'll see, I guess. In terms of development, we're working on that right now. We got builds running where you can actually experience what the theme is through the gameplay, and we know where we're going with it. It's looking like it's going in the right direction, and we'll keep working on it and make it even better. So hopefully in the near future we'll be able to reveal some of that, and yeah, this is going to be the climax, the finale of the series. We're going to make it a suitable finale, a really great send-off for the game. It will be something ideally we hope will please fans, will delight the fans of this much-loved series, and really reward everyone for sticking with us to the end. So look forward to that, more information in the not-too-distant future. It's all in safe hands. But twice in in that paragraph, he mentions getting information for Part 3 in the near future and the not too distant future. It's kind of the first update we've had on that in quite a long time. The last time would have been, Toriyama last year with the, Ever Crisis Anniversary thing, right? So, like, near future, not too distant future, to me sounds like maybe the Game Awards, because I don't know if we're going to get anything at Tokyo Game Show. We still have a few days left on that. I'm not even sure what like showcases and events there are, for TGS over the next couple days, but if we don't get anything at Tokyo Game Show, obviously the Game Awards is what we've been kind of eyeing in the distant future, which is something we've actually said in previous videos, and we have Hamaguchi here saying not too distant future. So, maybe that is. It's not too far away, I mean, it's like 3 months away, but still, like, it's not too far, man. But still, it's like the first update we've had in a while for like a time frame of some kind for information for Part 3. It is obviously vague. Near future, not too distant future. That could be a lot of things. But it's still something. They're at least talking about it. That's like the main thing. That's what we've been kind of wanting the entire fucking time, really. Just the occasional update, them talking about the game, whatever. Because they're doing that for a long time, like last year. Post-Rebirth, they were very periodically talking about the third game and like the high wind and stuff like that. And then it just went quiet for quite a long time. And then now we're kind of getting back into them talking about Part 3 stuff again. I'm realizing now that as we get to the end of this interview, there's nothing mentioning the title. And I went and looked at the other interviews they have, because they have like 4 or so total interviews with Hamaguchi, and none of them ever talk about the title. So now I'm realizing what's happening, because I thought it was kind of strange that Shin-Arc didn't tweet about that, about the title being determined for Part 3. This is another situation of Audrey doing things incorrectly. Her tweet was one I seen last night when I got done making my video, and the first thing she mentions is, title has been determined, reflects the gameplay and experience, is much like the first 2 titles too. And if you think about what we just read in that interview, that she's mixing up title with the fucking keyword. We used to kind of poke fun at Audrey's terrible translations in the past. We kind of haven't done that in a while because we don't really reference her anymore because she's just not a reliable source. I kind of went with what she said without fully reading the interview before making this video. And that's on me, technically. But I don't even know how you make this mistake whenever there's a fucking English transcript at the bottom of this interview. But even if you auto-translate the interview, it doesn't change the word keyword to fucking title, so I don't even know what happened here. To be fair, I'm sure they do already have the title decided for the third game. We talked about that towards the beginning of the video. They probably had that third game's title decided for quite a long time at this point, maybe even years. In terms of the other interviews out there, I haven't read through all of them yet, but I have seen, quotes and little snippets from them, and there is something to talk about from pretty much every one of these interviews with Hamaguchi. Starting with this Screen Rant interview, Hamaguchi does confirm that the streamlined progression that we're seeing implemented in the Xbox and Switch 2 version of Remake will come to other platforms eventually, he does say. And so at this time, we can't confirm or promise an exact timing of when these will be implemented, but overall, our desire is to be able to offer all these features and updates to all of our platforms. So that's something we had talked about on the channel at least a few times in previous videos. I had said that like 100% we're going to get the streamlined progression at some point for PS5, and here you have Hamaguchi confirming it. Just not really giving us, necessarily like a time frame for when that's going to happen, but confirming that it is going to happen, which obviously it was. Like, they're not just going to give us like new feature to only the Xbox and only the Switch 2 version. Like, they're going to obviously add it to Remake for PS5. He also did give us an update for the development of Rebirth on Switch 2. He says, so the dev team is already working on the Switch 2 version of Rebirth, and it's at the point where it's already moving and operating. Our work on Remake, it really allowed us to accumulate a ton of knowledge. It gave us a solid foundation, and I think for Rebirth, we'll be able to offer an experience that's going to be one where people are pleasantly surprised by it. Which probably means they're also working on the Xbox version of Rebirth as well, right? So they're pretty goddamn busy. They're making Remake for Xbox and Switch 2. They're making Rebirth for Xbox and Switch 2. And they're also working on Part 3. Now, according to one of the articles we read last night, I don't remember which one it was, Hamaguchi did say that the team's kind of splitting up and working on this other stuff isn't affecting the timeline of Part 3, and I hope that is true. Because they are quite busy right now working on all these different games and variations of the same game for all these different platforms. So here we have Hamaguchi yet again talking about how the Beauty and the Beast live-action remake or whatever is like an influence for the remake games, which we've heard so many times from him. In surface level, it's kind of funny to say, but it makes sense when he explains it. Something that we were particularly mindful of for the remake was thinking of all the fans of the original, of the FF7 IP. How much it would be reconstructing in today's modern expression that would continue to satisfy the existing fans. At the same time, when development was happening, the Beauty and the Beast movie remake was released. That movie, the original, was one I watched as a child. And then now they have the live action that's a remake. I saw that the overall story and world itself was not altered, but is completely deconstructed in a way to really entertain today's viewers, which was deeply satisfying. This quote was kind of interesting just because I've seen people in the community that are believers of the sequel theory sharing this quote for a completely different reason, but ignoring the fact that he points out how the Beauty and the Beast remake is kind of like an influence of sorts for the remake games, but he mentions how like the overall story and world aren't affected or changed. They just kind of deconstruct the lore of the Beauty and the Beast stuff or whatever, right? And they're doing the same thing with the remake games, right? So, and really they've said this like countless times in other interviews, right? But like they've said like the overall story and world and whatever, and it's all leading to having children, all that other shit, right? Like none of that's changing. They said this so many times, but people still want to be like, well, Aerith is going to be alive, and Zack's alive, and it's a sequel, you know? And it's like none of that makes any sense based on what they're telling us. Could they be lying in interviews or being deceptive or leaning in kind of some meta interview type shit, like they're unreliable narrators like our boy Cloud? That's all possible. I've heard it all. You guys have heard me say in a very recent video that like I don't even write off the idea of it being a sequel. Like I'm open to that idea. There's evidence to support pretty much every goddamn theory out there for the remake games, right? So I don't write it all off. I just have my opinion on what I think is happening. And at least for now, I'm just going with what the devs are telling us. And then he follows up the previous paragraph with some part 3 stuff. He says, watching this movie for me at the time poses a great reference in our creative works, and going forward, part 2 and part 3 of our remake series. Now we have this foundational experience. We're thinking more so, how can we surprise and entertain our players as an extension of that? I think really delving into that has led to the success of Rebirth. For part 3, we're thinking in terms of how we can pique that curiosity and maintain interest. That's been the focus for us in development, and I believe we're going to be able to provide something that's really going to make an impact in people's hearts as they play. So that's one of those things that I'm kind of in the middle on. Like, I do like there being new stuff, but like this idea that they have to like pique our curiosity and keep the interest and do new things, and these twists and turns, and it's like, I don't know, some stuff they do good, some stuff they handle poorly. There's aspects of like, you know, Remake and Rebirth in the story and what they do with characters that I'm just not a fan of at times. We've talked about, you know, the dying segment and other things like that. And not that the dying segment in Rebirth is overall bad, because it's still one of the few emotional moments in the game that affected me, and it's still great delivery from John, right? It's just, and it's not even like the way he died or whatever. Like, it's not just because he didn't fucking commit suicide or some shit, right? It's like the way they handled the character overall. Like, they changed it completely, because in the original game, Dine's kind of a badass, and he's like the leader of the desert prison and stuff like that, right? And then you get to this game, and he's just kind of nobody, and he's kind of nothing, and they just kind of brush him to the side, and we do some Magneto scrapyard boss fight. I don't know. Also, of course, the ending of Rebirth and how they handled the Aerith death scene, very, very controversial, of course, to the point that they were talking about it before Rebirth even came out. I think it maybe was Katase in like random interviews here and there was like, I don't know how people are going to feel about the ending. So even he knew, like, before the game was coming out, like, we did some fucking crazy shit. So yeah, I'm definitely here for some of the new stuff they do with the remake games, but I think for some of it, they're missing the mark at times. And missing the mark for Aerith's death for me is kind of a big one. And also the dying scene. Like, that's two of them. Two moments in the FF7 story that I'm like, you kind of got to get that shit right, or it can fuck stuff up. And for me, they kind of messed up both of those in some ways. So at the RPG site interview, they talk about the Magic the Gathering pack that's going to be bundled in the physical copies of the Switch 2 version of Remake. But they also talk about the potential for a physical version of the Xbox release of Remake, which I guess I wasn't aware that they weren't doing that. I know whenever we talked about the reversible cover for the Switch version of Remake, that I mentioned there probably would be one as well for the Xbox version, but I didn't know that there wasn't going to be a physical Xbox version, and why isn't there one? That's fucking weird. I believe also Final Fantasy 16 did not get a physical Xbox release either, right? So it's like, it's pretty strange how they're trying to move into like the Nintendo market and the Xbox market. But it feels like, at least with the Xbox market, you're not really that committed. Maybe it's an Xbox thing. I know some people talked about like Xbox kind of moving away a bit from physical media. So it might be on Xbox's end, but still, like, it just looks like, you know, Square Enix isn't that interested in like supporting the Xbox fan base, which is not what you want. Also, Hamaguchi does like black coffee, whatever that's worth, I guess. I do too. You know, another piece of evidence to support that me and him are secretly best friends. He just doesn't know I exist. Moving on to the Windows Central interview, as director of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I was curious how Naoki Hamaguchi felt about the way the game had been delivered and received, and if they would consider doing anything differently. We decided to construct Final Fantasy VII Remake as a trilogy. If we were to totally align with the original and replicate it exactly, I believe that would still appeal to players. But because it became a larger trilogy, we felt there was a necessity to change things up and try different things, to maintain interest across each part and pique players' curiosity. So we kind of already talked about this in the video, right? In general, we've been talking about this shit for almost 2 years at this point, post-Rebirth, right? I agree and disagree. Like, I think there are aspects of it that are great. Like, I think the end of Remake was perfect in terms of, like, post-game discussion, people wondering what the fuck's going on, what the hell's happening, what are we doing? And then just something about Rebirth, for me and a lot of people out there too, like, just something with the way they did the story and the ending of the game, it's not there for me. Like, it's not clicking that I want to, like, talk about that and theorize and theory craft. It's just not interesting. More so than the ending of Remake, because, I mean, every other fucking interview, they're like, well, Aerith is dead. Cloud just doesn't want to accept it. But then you'll have like another interview here and there where they're like, well, what's Aerith's fate? And it's like, what do you mean? You just told us over here that she's fucking dead. Cloud's not accepting it. What? I understand that there are different opinions regarding choices we have made for the Remake series, but I think as a whole, as a developer, I do think that these were the right decisions to make. I can't comment yet on Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, but I am also a big fan of the original Final Fantasy VII. I'm someone who played it when it first released too. I believe that the direction we are taking the series will ultimately satisfy fans who are eagerly awaiting its conclusion. I do trust them that Part 3 will be a good game, and I do think they'll end it in a satisfying way. But it does kind of come down to, like, what are they doing with ending? Are they trying to be ambiguous with shit like they have at the end of Remake, at the end of Rebirth, right? Are they also trying to keep the conversation going like they have at the end of the first two games, right? Like they want people to continue talking about the third game after the launch, right? I don't know. That's kind of what it comes down to, is like, how did they actually stick the landing? I'm saying like ambiguity itself is a bad thing, because we had that with the original FF7, which, you know, if I'm completely honest, I don't think the very end of FF7 is all that interesting. They just kind of cuts to black, right? We get like the 500 years in the future thing, but like we don't at that point in time know what the fuck happened to our characters. I mean, they tried to hint at it, but they fucked up the final FMV, and there wasn't smoke coming out of Midgard to imply that humans were still alive. And you have laughter at the end of the game, like the very end, but there's nothing saying that had to be human laughter, right? Because Red 13 can talk. Who's to say the fucking kids with him running up on the fucking hill howling or whatever can't talk? I don't know. They could have been their laughter for all we know. Regardless, it wasn't very sure that humans were supposed to be alive. But also, in general, we don't know what the hell happened to our characters. Like, it's just fucking holy meteor, live stream, whatever, and then it just, here's the credits, and it's like, what the fuck just happened? What are we doing, man? So, like, I'm hoping with Part 3, they obviously give us, like, the after effect of that. Like what actually happened to our characters directly after that, you know, leads into Advent Children. Like, give us an actual satisfying ending. But that is pretty much the video, my dudes. It's a bit of a thicker one, but we didn't even read really much of all the interviews. Like, some of them we just heard, like, one or two things kind of quickly, right? Not everything needed to be talked about from them, but they'll be linked in the description below if you want to go read them, of course. It's nice to be getting stuff for Part 3. Hopefully that's, like, a sign of things to come, even if it's not till the Game Awards. Like, hopefully we're kind of moving in that direction finally. Anyways, that'll be the video, my dudes. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @ffvii. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like